like, well, and go to pages.
Okay, so what did you do?
And then you're gonna add a new page.
You can do uplifting.
And go ahead and title it.
Julia's blog.
Whatever.
Okay, are we on? We're good?
Okay, so what I
Okay, we'll give
do,
everybody a little time to get on.
maybe
here.
if I teach it real quick, I can help you. I had to go in and see.
Yes.
What did you do? Oh. Okay, I hope, do we have anybody online? Okay, we'll give it just a minute here and give people a chance to get caught up. We're going to be talking about social media strategy and protocols. No, I don't want to see. Turn the volume down or I'll get feedback in my... You're just making us feel good by pumping up our audience. There's the big social media strategy. Have all your friends log in so it looks like you have a big audience. Are we still getting people coming on? Okay, so did everybody have a good time working on their blog? You can work on this and play with it anytime you want. I think it's relatively intuitive. Obviously, some of you won't think it's relatively intuitive, but it seems relatively simple to me to be able to build it. But play with it. You'll get used to it, and you can really do a lot of things with it. You just have to get used to where things are. For the online audience about Blogger, in case you have a question, there's only one kind of odd, non-intuitive thing, and that is pages. And when you do pages, there is one spot to create a new page. And by pages, I mean those tabs that run across the top. There's one place to create the pages, and that's in on the sidebar where it says pages. The left-hand sidebar, it says pages. And that's where you go to create a new page. Give it a title, put some content, but it doesn't show yet. Then you have to go on your page to a gadget, and the gadget will say, if you want it at the top, cross column, it'll say pages. And you hit edit, and your pages will be there. You can change the order of the pages, and you can click them on and off. If you want to work on it and turn it off for a while, you can do that. But that's where you change the order of the pages as they appear, and you turn them on or off to whether they show or they don't show. So it's the only one that has two different places where you have to go to operate the same thing. Okay, so this session, we're going to talk about social media strategies and protocols. So this is where you don't have to learn anything. Well, you do have to learn something, but you don't have to learn a new tool. So here's what I want you to know, and I want to make this really clear. This is not, what we're going to tell you is not the right answer. We are telling you an answer. It is one way, a big difference. I don't want anyone out there to think that this is the only way to do this. It's the only strategy or protocols that work at all. Every team has a slight nuanced different way of doing things. Some have very different ways of doing things. In fact, I'm sure when Dawn chimes in on her, she may have a difference in what some of their protocols or strategies are. But we're giving you one to work with. I don't think it's wrong. It just isn't the only right answer. There's a lot of right answers. So whatever works for you, for your state, for your department, your boss, your fire, whatever works. But this will give you somewhere to start and things to think about, okay? And you can ask the question when you get somewhere, what do you guys do about this? Because you'll know it's an issue for a strategy. So, I think that what's really important is that you think about your strategy and protocols before you go somewhere. It's the PIO version of know before you go. Have some idea of what you want to do, of how you're going to manage certain things. We talked about trolls and people showing up and giving you a hard time on your page, or being know-it-alls on your page, I don't mind know-it-alls on my page if they're right. That's all right. We often have people come on when some people post wrong things. The community, remember we talked about the community comes into police itself. and the community will post information, and I'm amazed sometimes at the audience. I'm like, wow, they were really listening. You know, they come on and they'll post a bunch of information. They'll say, no, you misread it. What they mean is this, and this is the reason we do this, and this is the reason why it's important, and this is the effects on the ecosystem. And I'm like, right on, that's great. You know, so people will come and protect you. I mean, you still have to watch your page, but people do know a lot of things. Okay, but you have to know what your strategy is, what it is that you want to do. I think maybe the most important thing, and I get this from a lot of people who aren't, especially older ICs who are kind of dug in on the old way of doing things. They're like, why do we have to do this? Why is it? You better be able to explain the why. Explain why you're doing it. But remember this, just because you can doesn't mean you should. This is not the answer to everything. Social media is not, we don't do it because we want to. We don't do it because it's fun. We don't do it because we just got a Pinterest account, and so this will be a good time. We don't do it because it's fun. We do it because we have a reason for doing it and it serves a purpose. If it doesn't serve a purpose, we don't do it. Hence the reason I said I experimented with, you know, Snapchat and could not find a way to functionally have it enhance our effort to communicate with the public. Now, if I wanted to enhance my communication with 12 to 18, you know, maybe I'd find a way to do something. But in terms of really conveying the importance of FIRE, of what we're doing, and of the recovery, and of what we want you to, the action for the public to take to keep themselves and their families safe, I couldn't find a way to make it be useful. If somebody can, I say do it. I couldn't figure out a way to make it useful. Some teams use Instagram, some don't. There's a lot of people on Instagram. I only have so many tools that we can staff to take care of. The more tools you add, despite whether you can, the more tools you add, the more people it takes to keep track of everything. And I don't have enough people. So I pick the basic ones that we really need to convey the story we're trying to tell, and I stick with those. And I do continue to look at other tools to see if there's something that will fill the gap if I eliminate one. But I only have so many people. I'm lucky if I can get 2, maybe 3 people who are going to do this. That are going to help me. And these are full-time people. I mean, do you want to dedicate? If you only have 5 people, do you want 3 of them doing social media? Probably not. Old school, one-on-one talking to people in crisis is still the #1 way to communicate with people. Being able to come up to someone and hold their hand and say, I'm so sorry you lost your home, is still the #1 way to connect with somebody. So we don't want to eliminate that. Trap lines are always going to happen because they give us an opportunity to bring the information where they are. Meet them where they are. And if where they are is in the community, walking the streets worried, then that's where we're going to meet them. If it's traveling neighborhoods and it's having neighborhood meetings, then that's where we're going to meet them. Maybe nobody in the community is on social media. Doesn't matter whether you like it. Doesn't matter whether you think it's a great idea and a great way to communicate with people and the easiest way to communicate with a lot of people. If nobody's on there, there's not really a point. Sometimes you can put up one tool and kind of train the community. This is a place where we can post a lot of information, but do not give up the old school way of contacting people one-on-one. Old school, you're still going to need those tools. You're still going to need one-on-one communication to talk to people who are in crisis. That's just human nature. So just because we can doesn't mean we should, so be very strategic about that. Make sure you have clear leaders' intent for the people running for yourself if you're running it, or for the people running your social media. Where do you want to drive your audience? Are you driving them to InstaWeb? Are you driving them to your Facebook page? Are you driving them to your blog? Where do you want to send it? You can't, you will on your press release, you're going to put links to everything so people can choose the platform, or a Twitter account. You want to say follow us on Twitter. What is your primary tool? Because that's the one you're going to do first. That's the one you're going to say, if you really want to know, the minute we know, go here. So what's the first one you're going to post? Doesn't matter to me what it is. It may matter to the forest that you're on. It may matter to your lead, or your team may have a particular policy about that. You do what they want you to do, but pick one. You have to have clear leaders' intent about what the order of things are, and that goes in your protocols. This is where you post first. This is where you post second. Okay? Then you got to find, the right, like I said, the right tool. Do you have a lot of information? In the case of JIX, we almost have to do a blog because we don't really have enough time. If you're going to build Facebook, you got to have people who are monitoring all the time and answering comments. You have to have someone that's dedicated to doing that. JICs don't traditionally have a very large JIC staff. They have a lot of agency people in there who can help with things, but the JIC staff is usually me as a JIC manager and maybe a deputy. I don't have a lot of people that are there just to support the JIC. They're there supporting their agency. So we can't take care of too many. So the blog is the one place we go. And besides, the thing we're trying to do most in the case of a Joint Information Center is we're trying to aggregate a lot of information into one spot. That by its nature is a blog. And we always have, every JIC I've ever done, we always have a lot of information that needs to stay where it is. That's a blog. If you need the information to stay, Facebook is not your friend. If you need to communicate with people, you want Facebook and Twitter. If you want it quick, easy to do on your phone, you want Twitter. If you want room for a little more things, you need Facebook, and you may need all three. If you're very photo heavy, maybe Instagram is the answer. Here's the warning I think I gave you the other day about Instagram. I did create on one blog, we did a hashtag, we created a gadget. We created some embed code from Instagram, opened an Instagram, did a search for the hashtag we were using on this incident, and we created an embed code of that stream. So the excuse me, the search code, the hashtag is what we followed. It was a whole thing of we want to show on our blog the stream following this hashtag. Then we realized we don't have any control over the stream. I mean, we don't know who's going to use our hashtag. And once again, we had Susie Delicious show up on our hashtag, and we're like, and now we have all of Susie Delicious's photos showing up on our blog, which was not good. She actually was called Susie Delicious. So you don't want to know. But it was not appropriate for a government blog. Let me put it that way. And because we didn't have control over who used our hashtag, we decided that wasn't cool to do that. Now, if we had started an Instagram account, we were a photo-heavy event, and we'd started an Instagram account that was just ours, and we could embed the code from just our account, that might be something that you could do. But you have to be careful when you embed streams that are of just a hashtag, because you don't have control over who uses that hashtag. So, and we do have to be careful what appears on our page. I can't control who follows me, but I can control who's on the page. Remember to use the delegation for guidance, if you can. And I say if you can, because often a delegation of authority, and who here is not familiar with delegation of authority? Delegation, you know what delegation. Okay, so sometimes a delegation has the generic timely and accurate public information and stay in touch with the community, and that's all it says. Some of it says you will maintain our social media presence with XX and XX. I try to encourage, if there are joint information centers, if a community has a joint information system agreement, that agreement have a pre-worded delegation that will say, we expect the team to provide us with a PIO that will come in and sit in our joint information center and provide information from the team, if that's what they want. But a delegation can spell out exactly what you're supposed to do. If it doesn't, then you have to ask the Kathys of the world when you come to a fire in their forest and say, this is what I would like to do. I would like to start a Facebook page, and have the argument about why, your whys, and we want to start a blog because of these things. Can we start what we feel we need to? I'd say about 70-80% of the time they say yes, do it, I don't even care. I got enough to do whatever you want to do. And then we ask them to post a link on their page saying, if you want specific information about this fire, go here. And then they post that, and that's all they have to do, and then they can stay out of not have to worry about it. But it can be, if it's not in the delegation, you need to ask during your initial in-brief. Again, you have to focus on keeping your content around informing and educating. I really feel strongly about the opportunity of taking advantage of the platform you've been given. What we tell people when we do 203 training and interviews is, think of it, we think of it as sausage links when you're doing information. There's information, key message. Information, key message, and they're attached together. Don't ever let them come apart. Don't give all your information with one key message at the end, because if they only use this part, your key message is lost. Information, you have to have key messages sprinkled all throughout. It's the same when you're doing blog or Facebook. You need to continue to educate and give your key messages, not just once in your press release, but sprinkle them in throughout every post. Educate people. Explain that, managing expectations. Social media is powerful for that. we know you love seeing these maps, but we only get them once a day. If you don't know how maps are created, maybe you create a post on how are maps created. That one that said, what do you mean by, or how does this happen? You create an educational page on your thing. One of them could say, how often are maps created? People are rabid about maps. I don't know any other way to describe it. They're just crazy for maps. And I want them to have maps, but they need to understand what I can give them and what I can't give them. Never underestimate your audience, but don't overestimate them. I say never overestimate them. Don't assume that they're all going to understand everything you're saying. Explain the things that you need to. It's the same you learn in basic press release writing, just is right for an 8th grade level, some level in there. So it's understandable. Your punctuation, your English, your grammar are correct. But don't use all your favorite buzzwords. Keep it simple. But don't underestimate. We've had public meetings at places. I remember the PIOs at Serra Grande, which was at the National Nuclear Lab. And the audience was all nuclear scientists. They're like, the questions we got at that meeting were way different. So are the carbon molecules going, and you're like, I don't, it's smoke, fire, bad. But so yeah, wet stuff on the red stuff, right? That's as complicated as we get. So, but don't underestimate them. Know your audience. Know whether if these are, I know that we have to change when we're in areas that are very rural and very grassland heavy. Farms, ranchers. It's very different than when you're at the station fire in Los Angeles, because people, we in fire are used to, we save homes and lives. We say property and lives, but we mean we don't want your house to burn. But as a matter of fact, I can't tell you how many grazers I've had tell me, I don't care about my house, it's insured. My grass and my fences are not insured. And I got 10,000 head of cattle. If you let that burn, I don't care about my house. So that's sort of a sea change for people in the fire business who are used to saving houses. So know your audience. And from that, know whether people, sometimes I've been in rural communities that are totally hooked up on Twitter. Colorado is really hooked up on social media. And it doesn't matter where you're on the state, Front Range or you're out in cattle ground, they're hooked up. And then you get to parts of, northern Montana or something in Idaho, they're like, what's Twitter? I don't know. So, you have to know your audience and you have to find out. Part of, we talked about VOST the other day. Part of what a VOST or people who are helping you can do, and you can do from home, is when I know I'm going somewhere, I start searching the community. I look on Facebook and I type in the name of the fire. I type in, if I'm going to Bend, the Bend Visitor Center. I type in the Bend Fire Department. I see who's posting, who's got stuff out there, and I keep notes of that so that when I go in, I know who it is, who I'm working with. You got to see who's tweeting. See if you got trolls already. See if there's someone who seems angry. You got to know your audience. And you can do that. Social media has the power of what I refer to as listening over the backyard fence. We used to wait. We'd post a press release. The media would run it, or they wouldn't. And we would then wait for the newspaper and then read the article and find out if we're doing okay or we're not doing okay. Well, with social media, we've taken out the middleman. We don't have to wait and see the response through the lens of the media's eye. We can do it directly. I can listen in your neighborhood. I can hear what you're saying to each other. I can see what you're saying to each other. And you're going to share things that will make me say, oh, these people are getting spun up about X. Or these people seem really worried about this weird thing, and I don't know why. But I can listen to the community, not in a weird lurking sort of way, but in a, I care and I want to hear what you're worried about so that I can help answer the questions kind of way. So know your audience. Find a way to listen. If you can't do anything else in social media, if you get there and it's just you, find a way to monitor. Find a way to listen. Go on, but see, here's the trick. In order to listen, you have to know the tool. And often you have to have the tool in order to be able to go in and listen. To search out people who post certain things on Facebook or follow hashtag, you got to have an account. You got to be able to log into your account in order to search. You have to be on Twitter to search on Twitter. So you need to be in the tools. You need to have them, and you guys all will be there. There's a girl named Toddy Steelman who was, Toddy. Did anybody know Toddy Steelman? In North Carolina. She goes at NC State. Did a lot of research. She went to Canada. I don't know if she came back, but she did a lot of fire research with communities and communication around fire. I can't remember if I put some of her research in the folder. If I didn't, I will. But she had this, she called it, she says there's a Maslow's hierarchy around fire. You remember from sociology in school, Maslow's hierarchy of need, there are certain things you fundamentally need in order to function. And there are things that get put to the side, like ethical decisions, when what you need is shelter, food, water, all those things are fundamental. So she said there's a Maslow's hierarchy. People need to know, what do I have to do to stay safe? What do I have to do to keep my family safe? And what's coming next? What's the fire doing next? And unless they know those things, they can't hear you talk about anything else. So make sure that you're addressing those needs, make sure that those things are being met. In fact, I changed the way I do public meetings. They said, in her research, they said what they really disliked a lot was this giant bench of talking heads and the long introduction. Hi, I'm Bob Smith. I'm running for council, but I want you to know I care about your district. And now we have the forest supervisor. Well, our forest, we've done all this. And everybody makes this generic address, and it takes a half hour. Meanwhile, people are sitting there wondering if they have a house. So what we do is I come in, I say, I know you have a lot of questions, and there's a lot of people up here to talk to you, but let me have operations give you an overview of the fire right now, where we are, where the fire's moving. So I tell them what they need to know right away up front. Okay, everybody good? I know you have questions, but we have a lot of information here. It'll probably answer a lot of questions, and then we move on with, and we introduce them one at a time as they speak instead of the whole panel. And keeping the panel as small as you can, obviously, but that's meetings management. So, but what I'm saying is that you just remember that there are things people need to know, and make sure you address those on social media and on every other platform that you have. There is a Maslow's hierarchy. There is a need for a certain kind of information, and you can provide that. No cell phone service doesn't necessarily mean, or no power doesn't mean no social media. At Carlton Complex in Washington, when we got there, the people said to me, we need a Facebook page. You got to start a Facebook page. And I was like, okay, why? Usually I'm fighting to get them to let me to start a Facebook page. Why? They said, because there's no power. People can't get on their computers. And so they're used to Facebook on their phone. Everyone's got that. With the cell towers, we're still working. We want to see it there. Okay, and that's the way a lot of them got it. Then cell phone towers went down, power came back up. It was a big mess. But we had to be on a lot of places because some places things required power, some required phone service, and as things went up and down, people could switch to different places. So we were everywhere. In addition, don't think that the only audience for your message is the audience in the town. First, people said, well, if the power's out, why are you even bothering to do this? Or if the cell tower's down, why are you bothering? Because we got information that people's moms in Michigan, they could see it, and they would call their daughter on their landline, which worked, and say, the fire's coming here. And the daughter would be like, where are you getting this information? She's like, well, there's this whole thing. There's whole pages that has all this information. So there are other people who will feed from the outside community. Also remember, evacuated people are often outside of the immediate area. They evacuate them to somewhere a little farther away, and they may have power there. And the only way they have to track what's going on at the incident is with social media, is getting online in some way. So I want to talk a little bit about social media strategies. This is in my humble opinion. I believe your social media strategy should be tiered to your communication strategy. It's not a standalone, we do it because it's fun. We do it because it supports the objectives in our communication strategy. Now, not everyone has a written communication strategy, but most of us who don't have it in our head. We know what we're trying to get done. We know the audiences we want to get to because we've identified the audiences. We know the important key players that we have to keep in the loop. We know about managing expectations of people, and I know all the time what are the issues about maps and all that kind of thing. So my social media strategy is tiered to that communication strategy. So if your communication strategy has something that most do, provide timely, accurate, and timely content, information. Right? That's part of everybody's, that's a communication strategy objective. Now, how am I going to support that with social media? Okay, so it's not a standalone social media objective. It's in order to support the greater communication strategy. This says We will vet the how is we will vet all information, negative or positive, that is operational in nature, specific to tactical actions or specific regarding completed tactical tasks with a designated operational person. Non-operational information will be vetted via the lead PIO or designate. Meaning, if I'm just posting about the Red Cross setting up a new center, and the Red Cross called and told me that, I'm going to make a post and I'm not checking with anybody because it's okay for me to do that on my team. Your team may be different. If you had to check every post with your IC, I think if he wants you to do that, you should do it. And you should do it nonstop. And he'll finally go, okay, never mind, with every little thing that you put on there, okay? But mine doesn't require that. So, but regarding operational information, you hear a lot of things. You hear it on the radio. You hear somebody wandered in and go, oh, my God, I was just out there. It blew over Chemist Road. You're like, really? Well, I'm not just going to go, I'm going to go into operations. I'm going to say, I heard the fire moved over Camas Road. And they look at their thing and they say, oh, no, there's some radio traffic, but it was the water tender driver and he was on the wrong road and he thought it was over Wenham. All right. So we're not going to do it. You must vet tactical and operational information with operations. So that's part of our policy. And this is how we're going to provide accurate information, is we are going to vet that kind of information. Okay? We will establish at each incident an appropriate method for collection of operational information. Will you put a PIO into operations? Will you arrange for regular updates from operations? Will you have a PIO embedded with the divisions at active divisions on the fire? Will you get, and this was great, these short hourly reports. I was sitting at a fire in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, and a guy walked around with a 213 handing me the white page, and he gave the pink one to operations, and he gave the yellow one to the IC. And I looked at it and had like 2 lines. It said the fire's been held at Division L on the river, and the crew is moving to whatever division, and the column that you see is on the north end of the fire. I'm like, this is gold. This is daily operational information. One line. That's all I need. I can ride this for a couple hours with a couple of posts like this. But it's hard to get operational information. I said, where is this coming from? Who are you? And he was from communications, the people who were answering the radio. And Air Attack would call him once an hour. And they would, 20 seconds, they would give him, 30 seconds. They'd say, this is happening and this is happening. He would write it down. He'd bring it in and hand us. So every hour we got these pieces of gold landing in our lap. And I thought, what a great idea. I don't know why it never occurred to me to ask before. Now, you can't always get Air Attack to do this for you. But, I tried telling my next op guy, if you could have them do that once an hour, he goes, how about twice a day? I'm like, no, you don't understand. I have a machine here that needs to be fed. And I need to feed it things every hour. And if I can feed it little, I said, it's not going to take any time. Could we just try it? Once an hour. I mean, if they don't call every hour, if they call every hour and a half, or whenever they have, but they call on a regular basis. And they give you these little bits of information. But you got to, you have a big machine to feed, but the system is not set up to support feeding that machine. So you need to build a system. It's just a new thing. You have to work with your team or the people there and say, how are we going to get operational information? Because I need to get bits of information more than once a day at the planning meeting. That's just not enough anymore. It's not enough. Sometimes the problem is that your operations people don't realize what they know that's useful. When I say, have you finished the line from down the ridge in Division L down to the road? Oh, yeah, we did that an hour ago. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? He goes, it's just what we do all the time. I mean, this is not a big announcement. I'm like, so you have to train them that I can use all this information, all the little accomplishments that you do, I can use, because it makes people feel that you're communicating with them all day long. Even if you're trickling it in. When you watch CNN on the event of a hurricane, is everything they say new? No. But they do it all day long. They continue to recycle it. Every time they get a new piece, they feed in a new piece of information. And you go, ooh, that's new. And the rest of it's all stuff I heard before, and then, ooh, that one's new. So we just feed in a new piece of information whenever we can. Okay? But you've got to figure out how you're going to gather it. Yes?
The other thing, you find, somebody in operations that's so frustrated, that's a PIO wannabe. There are folks that are friendly. There's plenty that aren't, but you can find somebody and they'll text you pictures through the day or shoot that information.
This regular updates from operations, you'll find people who are PIO friendly. They are in there, and they'll send you pictures and updates. If you got a really active division and you go to the division soup after the morning briefing and you say, hey, if you get any updates on your division or you know it's true, would you call me that your number should be in the IAP, and let me know or send me pictures.
So when it comes to the operational briefings, my ops guys now will start sending me photos, and sometimes there's nothing with it. I just get a random photo of a smoke column to show where that fire's at. But they're starting to communicate more. The other thing that we use is when we do firing operations, we'll ask them to give us a picture of the smoke column of the firing operations, and we can post that onto social media and say, this is what it looks like, this is what you're going to be seeing, this is not a new start, this is not a spot fire, this is the firing operation. So it kind of keeps people right in the loop of what they're seeing visually, because you'll get those phone calls and say, I see a new column of smoke, what is that? And instead of trying to track that down, we can be proactive, and getting that stuff from ops is pretty big.
Yep. But setting up that, it's a new relationship with you in operations. Sometimes they prefer to come in and give you briefs. They say, I'll come in when there's something new throughout the day. As long as they understand what it is we need, it doesn't have to be a big announcement. The fire's out, it can be just, we finished the line on this division. It can be very small. As long as they understand that, they can come in and give it to you. And let me just make this suggestion. If you send a PIO into operations, please make it somebody with an operational background. Don't send in the front desk lady from, Podunk, Iowa, who's never been on a fire before into operations. It will make them insane. And they will not be happy with you. Send in somebody who used to be a hotshot or has worked on the line that will understand their conversation and who has enough experience to know discretion. They need to be comfortable enough with them to continue having conversations that you can say, I just heard you talk about some problem we're having with the line on this. Is that what's going on? And they explain it to him, and he can decide whether, and ask them, is that something we want to talk about or not? And they'll probably say, no, we're going to see how the whole thing works out.
And one thing you want to do if you're sending somebody in to talk to ops, make sure it's the same person. If you constantly are changing people and ops has just random PIOs coming in asking them, they're not going to want to give information. But if you have the same person, they can build that relationship and that trust with operations, and they're more than willing to give them more of the story or give them more updates without feeling like somebody's in the way.
And we bring this up because this piece is critical to the job you're doing. It's changed over time. We are not waiting for the planning P, and you'll run into old school people who say, well, you'll get it at the planning meeting, and it's not enough. You have to be able to explain to your team. Okay, and then we say, actively timely content. We will use GroupMe or other group texting tools to keep PIOs informed of education or public information to ensure they have access to timely and accurate information. How do you, if the fire's changing constantly and you got 15 people out on the ground talking to people, how are you going to keep them updated as the fire changes? To give timely and accurate information all day long, you have to come up with a method. I don't care if you have 3 people and you do group texting, or if you use GroupMe, if you use an app to do it, whatever you use. Calling everybody one at a time, probably not going to work. They do have to have cell service of some kind. They got to be able to get, information to them. You have to be able to get it to them. But if you can't, what could you do? If you don't have Yellowstone has very little cell service. People are out in remote areas. So what do you think we did to make sure they had information? Come on, you must think of it. Some of you have more experience in that. How did we get information to them? We could do it on radio, only the problem is sometimes the distances were so great, and being on a command channel would be a big no-no. So you'd have to use a logistics channel, which was really only made for camp, so it didn't reach far enough. We told them to call us. They were told to call in. I don't care if you have to leave where you are, come back in, find your way. There were places, gift shops and places around where you could use where you had phone service. Go in there and you call us. At least every 2 hours.
You were getting to call you.
The PIOs. So we have the PIOs in the field call us. But there are apps that you can use to keep people informed. That's how we're going to do it. Trap lines. Now, in terms of...
GroupMe, can you set up multiple groups?
Yes. The question was, can you set up multiple groups on GroupMe? Yes, you can. So, like we have a GroupMe for my team,
Right.
and there's a GroupMe for the PIOs. There are some rules about GroupMe, that's a whole PIO discussion, but it will make you insane if you don't set up some rules. But trap lines. Now, trap lines are an old school thing. But how do we make trap lines a new school thing? We make sure that we have QR codes on trap lines because we need people to be able to take the information at an old school trap line and take it with them. So how do we do that? QR codes. Simple enough. And you put up QR codes, everyone under 40 is going to be up there going, they all know what it's for. most people know it. It's almost considered passé right now, but it's a really good way to make it's a really good way to make information mobile for people. So they walk up to a bulletin board, they talk to somebody to get all the information, and I use one called Kerem Erken. It's KEREMERKEN. And the reason I use it is because you just go to Kerem Erken and it brings up a whole page and there's a lot of different kinds of QR codes. I can make a QR code that's a calendar invite. So if we have a meeting coming up, people click on that and it puts that meeting in their phone, in whatever they have on their phone, which is very handy if you want people to show up at your meeting. I can do an email. So if you're standing there and you have a question, click. Our email address comes up with the subject standing it, from a bulletin board question, and they can type their question and I can email them an answer right back. I can do it for our IncyWeb or our Facebook or our blog site or anything else. I can do it as a phone call. Click, phone call. Okay, so not all of them do that. Some of them just have like URL codes, but I like Kerem Erken because it gives me a lot of choices for what I can use. But there's a million of them out there for making barcodes. They're very simple to do. We create just a poster with a lot of QR codes on it. Make sure you identify the QR code because they all look the same. And if you don't put what it is underneath it, you'll forget what it is.
How do you make QR codes?
Go to Kerem Erken, KEREMERKAN. If you go to Kerem Erken and you scroll down, it'll say browse, where is it you want, what kind do you want to create, and you just pick the kind you want to do, and you don't have to click any of the other things. At the bottom say create, and a big code will come up. You just copy it and use it as a JPEG and drop it into a Word document. It's very simple.
The one that I use QR Code Monkey.
Oh.
QR Code Monkey will let you put in a Facebook logo or a Twitter logo in the middle of that QR code. So that's the one I use. I also will do one for IncyWeb. I have seen people use QR code services where the QR code is only good for 30 days. So make sure you are using a source that you know that QR code is going to stay linked for the amount of time that you need it.
Public meetings, providing accurate, timely information when meetings just set up. All available social media tools will be used to increase attendance at the meeting. Tools like TweetUps. You know what a TweetUp? When you're on Twitter, if you're new to Twitter, you can create a TweetUp, which is a meeting of Twitter followers, not Twitter followers. And the reason we did it at one meeting, two meetings, but one meeting we did that because the audience was divided. There were a lot of supporters, and they don't speak up very much. You heard a lot from the negative people, but you didn't hear a lot from the positive people. And we wanted to provide some kind of forum where we could encourage the positive people to be there. So we decided to have a tweet up. We invited people to a tweet up that was about an hour before our public meeting. We did the tweet up and said, come to this meeting, come to this tweet up. We'd like to meet you. We'd like to put a face with a name. We'll have some coffee. We'll be able to have a conversation, and then we'll go to the public meeting. And the positive people showed up at the tweet up. And now we've loaded our public meeting with the positive people that are there instead of just the negative people who tend to show up. So you can utilize some of these to bring the crowd that you want with you. Tools like Google Earth are used to build more effective meeting presentations. If you don't know Google Earth or how to build a presentation in Google Earth, learn. It's a hugely powerful tool for showing and displaying and flying the perimeter of fires and doing a lot of really cool things. Attendees will be informed of all places to get information, the frequency that updates and maps can be expected, and provided with business cards. We do business cards, simple break, clean break, business edge cards, and I have a layout that I use for them, and we put our logos, the name of the fire, our call-in, our email, and on the back are the QR codes. We hand them out. So now it's also mobile. I have it with me all the time in a form that I can stick in my wallet easily or my pocket, wherever I keep other business cards. It's not a big piece of paper like the press release, which is going to get thrown away. It's easy to stick in your wallet. We're trying to make it easy to have the information with you and to make it mobile. Okay, so there's a lot of things on here. We have so another objective in the communication strategy is ensure that rumors, upset residents, and trending issues in affected communities are tracked and dealt with. That's just one of our communication things. How? We're going to use the most effective tools available to monitor the news media, blogs, discussion groups to determine rumors that could undermine our efforts at transparent and accurate information. Also monitor for awareness and documentation of media coverage and trending issues. Okay, so that's how we're going to use those tools to ensure that people are helped. We will not engage, it says, with upset social media users on social media sites, but rather find ways to engage and diffuse those users offline. We will additionally rely to a reasonable extent on the community to police and correct itself. It sometimes takes longer than you're comfortable with, but it likely will happen at some point. When responding to upset users, we will try to respond in general to the social community in question, not to particular comments or include information in subsequent updates. This includes firefighters and incident personnel. So we're setting the stage for so when we do something and the IC says why, we say it's part of our strategy. We said we would do this, or we would not. Like my old boss used to come in and go, why don't you tell this guy, get after him and tell him, and I'm like, now? We said we're not going to engage with individual users because it just starts a battle in public, and that doesn't do you any good. So you need to have a strategy. I'm not saying this is the only answer or this is the only way to do this. I'm just saying I think it's a good idea to tier your social media to your communication strategy. Okay? A little further down, communication strategy says we will manage public expectations about fire, IMTs, the agency during the incident and long term. How will we do that? We'll watch trends and use that information to determine where clarity and education is needed. We'll build social media sites that make it possible to post educational, fire or local agency related information to engage with the public between operational updates. Sometimes you go a long time and nothing much is happening on the fire, which, is good, but you still have these tools and you still have a feed, so what are you going to put on there? Individuals at the host agency and community leaders will be engaged with specific tools to help keep them up to date. Agency personnel may be included in GroupMe to allow them to see the updates to the PIO staff. If I'm feeding PIO's updates, it's nice to have Kathy or the PIO on the forest see those updates as well. So I don't have to send her a separate note. She's just in the GroupMe. Key community leaders might get the posted tweets on their cell phone. That's a possibility for how we're going to do that. All of these things are tiering how we're going to respond with social media for the communication strategy point. Team will work to develop positive relationships between the community and the lead agency that will last long term. How will we do that? Well, we're going to refer to the local agency as often as possible as a source and expert. You will use local hashtags and agency social media tools for incident-specific information. We will always, post the agency Twitter site and encourage people to follow it. You have an opportunity when there's a fire to really build the agency audience. I mean, you have a significant opportunity to do that. So we always, tag and post and try to push an audience to say, make sure, especially near the end of your incident, as we're leaving, make sure you stay in touch with the so-and-so Facebook page because they'll keep you updated on what's going on after the team is gone. And we try to engage that audience back and boost a lot of their audience. Every decision we make about information sharing will be designed to enhance the reputation of the lead agency first. So we try to do posts or discuss issues that they like, use our blogs, allow room for photos that are telling their story, not just our story. That's a service we can provide because we have social media tools that they may not have. And we built an audience they may not have. And we have the opportunity to share their issues with a larger community. And that's part of what we want to do. We'll use appropriate tools, but we'll always drive information back to agency preferred information sites. So if the agency says, we spent a long time making our audience go to INSEEWeb, we want everyone driven back there, then that's what we'll do. Against my best wishes, but we'll do it if that's what they really want us to do. Or if they want us to drive them to they want us to share their social media pages, we'll do that. We'll work to maintain and enhance the agency's two-way communication relationships and communications. We'll engage in such a way as to encourage conversation and the free exchange of comment and concerns. The point of that is we're not shutting people down unless we have really good reason. You want to let people share the misery that they're feeling, their concerns, their pains, their worries with somebody who shares the same concerns. And that's why we build it. We will use federal standards in regards to obscene, racist, sexist, or other derogatory remarks, as these are protected by freedom of speech policies. We will post in a prominent spot the statement, any post deemed not germane to the conversation will be deleted, and types of inappropriate posts which are also determined to be not germane will be removed. We have it as a policy. Okay? We have paperwork to back up what we're doing. And that's important because should you get in a long-term legal battle with somebody, you'll be able to say, we have a policy to do or not do this thing. We have prioritized our target audiences, and we will build social media tools that support our communication objective. If our first priority is the residents of any community immediately impacted by an incident and they're not on social media, we're not worried about it. That's not our priority. It's going to be trap lines. It's going to be standing in front of Safeway. It's going to be a 1 community or 2 community meetings a day, whatever is necessary for that community because they're our number 1 priority. Number 2, those impacted by smoke or ability to see, those who are proximally concerned about the incident, and public officials who represent the affected community. There's where your email list comes in. Your Senator so-and-so is going to want you to send them an email every day. But what I do is I send the email, I create an email, but I tell the staffers, if you want information, go to these places. And the staffers will go there and make sure he gets information. I tell them this press release I send you is yesterday's news. So if you want something current, you need to go to these current pages. And third, those who are remote but have a connection to the affected area by properties. You know, people who have summer homes in areas where we are, they're worried. People who have family in those areas, they're worried. They're still an audience for us. But are they the priority? No, they're our third priority. People who are closer are our first priority. And we'll develop the tools that will support our objective with the audiences in that order. Okay? We'll do outreach beforehand to determine the tools, social media tools already in use. Upon arrival, relationships will be built with existing social media sites in order to leverage. Remember, we talked about when there are sites in a community that you can access or you can leverage their audience. We do that. We try to say, can we feed you information to post on your page? Can you watch your page for us and let us know if you're getting just more eyes and ears in the community? Now, sometimes you get someone who has the, we don't like the Forest Service page or the why aren't you fighting this fire right page, and maybe not. But there are ways to deal with those people as well, which we'll get into a little later. But that is a possibility that you can leverage those people, and I highly recommend you do it. They're usually very willing to help. I went to Australia and New Zealand on a wildfire study tour, and there was a woman in Tasmania who, during the fires of Tasmania, I think it was Black Saturday, whatever it was, when all the fires happened, and she was on Tasmania is an island. She was on an island just off Tasmania, a small island where there were a lot of homes, and she was helping. She said, "Well, I need to help because people are, stuck in this island, and they have dogs and horses and all this stuff they have to get off the island." And so she organized she started a Facebook page, and she organized the boats, and she was helping move animals and things off the island by boat and telling people who had a boat and who was where, and she was doing this. And she decided not to post fire information because she wasn't sure where to get it. Well, finally, the fire guy, remember I told you in Australia and New Zealand, they use social media for a lot. And so the guy with the Tasmanian Fire Service, I think it's called, finally contacted her, and he said, "You know what? I need a place to send people who keep asking me that kind of information. I'm just dealing with the fire." So they worked together, and he sent her fire information so that she had it. If she needed to, if someone seemed to be asking a question about fire, she still agreed she wouldn't be answering fire questions on her page. She would direct them to his page. And he referred all community support questions, dogs, animals, boats, all that stuff to her, and she organized that. And together they served an enormous population and did a really good job with it because they agreed to work together. Just because you get somewhere and they've started a page is no reason to go, "Oh my God." I can remember early on in the social media game, and I said, "Well, there's already this page." And he said, "Well, you tell them they're going to have to shut down." I said, I think we have a constitutional thing that says I can't just go tell you can't do this. And he was like, but people won't know. And hence we started having an official fire information logo in some way to let people know what was the official information. But then it was a little later before we actually realized, we could call these people. They're only posting it because there was a vacuum of information. Now that there is official information, they've already built an audience. So let's feed them the official information, and we're golden, right? It doesn't always work, but I'd say 99% of the time it works. In terms of capacity, don't build it unless you can maintain it. Okay? This is important. Unless and it's determined there is a need, you have technical capacity, there are some requirements. You need cell service, you need internet service, you need power, determine there is an audience for it, and you have available staff on scene. Do I have people here who can do this? It will not be used if I don't have those questions answered. Those are required. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Now, sometimes, now that my team knows that we have this significant internet cell power issue, you know, the cell on wheels is outside my office, man. I'm like, we're going to suck a lot of juice out of this place. And we do. Between us and mapping people, that's where most of the juice in camp goes, you know, is we're sucking a lot of that power and internet capacity. So they know, though, these days that there's a lot of that going on, that we need a lot of it. So it's important that if you don't have it, don't start it till you have it. I mean, if you're trying to operate off, you have a decent cell service, but the only internet you have is on your phone through cell service, you're going to want to be careful how much you build that you have to support, because maps and pictures take they're going to eat a lot of juice doing that. So you could do it for a day or so, but you better have internet power, something coming right behind. You better have somebody coming to supply you with that. And usually at larger camps they do. Smaller camps they don't. So you have to decide, how much can I actually do? You know, how much can I actually support? And if you don't have enough people, forget about it, as they say. You know, if it's only me, I have so many other things to do. I have so many meetings to go to, so many phone calls to be on. I cannot actually do all of this stuff. And I just don't until I get more people. And I need the right people. A minimum of one dedicated person is needed to begin social media. One, whose sole job is to do that. With appropriate skills, hopefully you get enough that you can have a lead and a couple of people under them to really organize things. But social media tools, in order of priority, monitoring is first. That's the first thing we do, is we set up something to monitor to be able to watch. Then InsuWeb and Facebook, then Twitter, then Blogger, and ArcGIS Story Map, depending on what the need is. If we need more informational, we may bump Blogger instead of Facebook, or whatever. Social media is power, internet, operations, and GIS dependent. Absolutely. If you don't have those things. Okay, so this is in your folder, the student resource folder, so you can look at it whenever you want to. We have another one. This is the Southwest IMT social media strategy. Just as another way to lay it out, and they have the strategy, timely and accurate information. They have objectives, and they have strategies about how they're going to distribute, guidelines for posting, guidelines for managing comments. Welcome to the blah 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 fire information page. We hope this will be a place where people feel comfortable sharing fire information. This is a disclaimer. Now, this whole thing is their disclaimer. It's kind of long, but it has good things. We don't allow solicitations or advertisements. I would come up with something shorter, and if I needed to be specific about something, I might pin it. But the problem is, where do you put something this long on Facebook where it's always there? If you pin it to the top, the problem with pinning things at the top is people come to the page and they say, oh, I already saw that post before. They don't realize you have to scroll under that it's pinned. You have to scroll under it to see the new post. So if I can avoid pinning things to the top of the page, I do. But finding a place to put a disclaimer is a nice thing to do. They have, let me see here. These are some, and all these are in your folder as well. Guidelines for posting. Let's see.
Do you address anything related to working with law enforcement as opposed to a wildfire? We've been on some law enforcement events, assisting them, and their idea on social media posting is totally different.
Yeah, that's why I say you have to. It's very different in an all hazard situation. With all hazard, sometimes there are legal complications that we don't have in fires. I used to work on oil spill response, and in oil spill response, which we don't have, there is a responsible party, and it matters whose letterhead you use, because somebody's shares in their stock is going to go. So they care a great deal about how exactly this happens and the exact wording you use and whose letterhead and whose logo's on top and whose name comes first. I mean, it matters in a way it doesn't matter on fire. And the same with if you have a USAR or a missing person that's a significant or a suspect escaped from a prison and they formulate a team to deal with whatever. It's a different thing. And there are going to be legal parameters. So this only deals with fire. I would think you could adjust some of it, but it depends. Some law enforcement is totally behind and on social media. They use it a lot. They use it for everything. Others won't let you put anything on at all. So as with anything, this is only my strategy on a wildfire. If you may have other restrictions. Your boss may not want you to do some of these things or may want it to be structured differently, or the incident you get on may not make it possible to do it in exactly this order. But you could look at it and say, you know, which of these things is accurate? We do want timely and accurate information. So how are we going to provide it within the bounds of the agency that we're working with? So they're in there so that you can adapt them if you want to. Don't adapt them in our folder. I think it's only set to you can view, not you can edit. So download them and do whatever you want with them on your computer. Let me see. There was a... Oh, I know where it is down here. Protocol. So I was going to go over a little bit, and I have to give all credit to Chris Barth. I don't know if he's still on. On One Fire, we finally... I'd always had this protocols, but I was having to tell everyone new that came in, and he finally wrote it all down for me. we got it written down. So this is the parts about how you will do this. I can hand to a new person coming in. Establish Gmail first, and from that account, start the drive. Create a folder called Maps. So, as I said, in each folder that we start, we have subfolders. We have the 9.5, the 9.6. We have daily maps. We have closure maps. We have progression maps. We need folders for each of those things. And maybe under progression maps, if they're doing more than one, we have them by date. Okay? And it matters that you organize your folder first, because when you link to something in Google Drive, that thing, document, folder, has to stay there. If you move it, the link will break. So you can't put your maps and your press releases all over the place, link to them, and then go, oh, I should organize this, and move them all into little folders. All your links are broken. So set up your system first. The folders get I mean, you don't have to do all the dates right away, but you have to have the folder, and then as soon as you create the document, before you link it, put it in the folder where it's going to stay. Okay, so... Huh? Yes, this is in there as well. So, create the other folders you need. I have what you can consider. Updates. These are folders that I usually have in Drive. Like Dawn was saying, they have a standard set of folders they have. Usually these are the kinds we have. Updates, closure orders. You always need the closure order. Always. So make sure whenever you get one, you save it. Thank yous, because you're working on thank you cards, or maybe a list of who you're thanking. Public meetings, because you make flyers and all that kind of thing. Featured photos or daily photos. Burn bans and restrictions. Videos, because you have them. Handouts that you build. Office admin stuff, because you always have stuff you're doing a demob sheet and all kinds of other things. Donations, maybe you have a quick fax, tweet sheets for the day. If you have a bunch of logos for all the people, cooperators on your fire, you need to save them. Trap lines, we usually build trap line spreadsheets so we know where we put them and where the trap line is. Prevention information, we do daily talking points, general photos as opposed to featured photos, or maybe we create photos and inside that we have daily photos. Those featured or the ones we're featuring each day. And this is what we used to do, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, but I make the map and update folders shareable, the folder, using public on the web. Then everything in them will have the right sharing permission. That way, you all don't have to remember with each document to change the sharing permission. However, FireNet, Team Drive, will not allow you to do that for security reasons, so you have to change every document. So, it's one of those things. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff in here. Things about maps, know how to access and find them. About download the map from the FTP site, where you get it, how you download it, where we put it, and then what we do with maps on all the different sites. This is general information up top, and as you scroll down, what we do on InciWeb. We have here InciWeb is the first place it's posted. If there's more than one fire, this is the order we post them in. We have things like you always post the closure map last. And the reason is because the last thing to post on InciWeb is the first one that shows. And if you post a closure map and you say, well, it hasn't changed at all, well, guess what? It's buried 7 days down in the bottom of 800 maps and nobody knows where to find it. So we post it every day and it's always last. So the closure map is right on top. And then there's the daily PIO map, so they both stay right on top. So there's a bunch of things in here. It's in the drive. You're more than welcome to download it and do whatever you want with it. I want to repeat that this is not the end-all answer to everybody. Everybody's got their own way to do stuff. There are better ways, I'm sure. I learn something every time I go to a fire, a new way to do something. So if you have a better way, build your strategy around what works for you and what works for your team. Okay, is there any questions? Okay, so we're going to break and go to lunch. And we are going to be back at, at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock Eastern time, for those who are online. 1 o'clock Eastern time, we'll be back. We'll talk a little about incident-specific pages and how to choose your own tools, and when things go bad by 2 o'clock. So come back for that if you want to. And hopefully things won't go bad by 2 o'clock. Things will be okay. Talk to you later.